Welcome to the Inspired Riding Audio Summit. We're going to be talking about the benefits of intuition in the horse world. I have with me today Jenku Dietrichsen. Jenku is an internationally recognized professional horse trainer and coach with more than 30 years' experience in the industry. Primarily based in Cape Town, South Africa, he travels nationally and internationally to work with horses, their trainers, and/or riders, no matter their level of training or discipline. He is an NLP, Neuro Linguistic Programming practitioner, specializing in positive reinforcement, learning theory, ground skills, riding skills, as well as natural collection. He specializes in innovative training techniques and always strives to stay up to date with current training methods worldwide. Jenku, thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you for the privilege, and thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate this space. And it's my pleasure to see you again. It's like after, we haven't spoken to each other for, I think, 2 years now. So, it's lovely to see you again. And thank you for the invitation.
You're most welcome. Thank you for being here. So let's get into the questions, Jenku. So the first one is, what do you love most about working with horses?
I think the feeling that I get is so it doesn't matter if I'm feeling a little bit up or down. It's there's a certain zone that I go into when I'm with horses and with people. And I once had a client that asked me, don't you get bored? Because she came and watched the first 3 lessons early morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, a new market in England. And then she went to go to work. And then in the late afternoon, after 5 o'clock was her lesson. And she arrived like 4:30. And she said, "You've done 9 hours of training." And we did Piaf, Spanish walk, and stand still and relax. And she said, "You're doing the same exercise with every person. Don't you get bored?" And I go, "No, never. This is amazing, that connection between a horse's mind and a human mind. And obviously every horse and every human is an individual. So if you put those two individuals together, it creates a whole dynamic. And every dynamic, so it was 9 different dynamics that I worked with throughout the day. That's what's fascinating about it. Even though the exercise might be the same physical things that we do at a physical level, but at a mental level, it's a very, very different ball game, eh?
I love that so much. Yeah, I never get bored around horses. And if you are bored, then there's something a little bit weird about you, I guess.
Maybe then you should rather go and ski or something. Yeah.
But how cool is that you get to play with all those different horses and see all the different reactions? It must be amazing.
Very much so. And I think also what's fascinating is to see the connection and the communication between different humans and their horses and vice versa. I think that's what really intrigues me is that in Neuro Linguistic Programming, there's a beautiful presupposition that says the quality of our communication is in the response that we get. So it means that fundamentally, just because the book says, let's say you pick up the right rein and then you touch the horse with the whip behind and knee for a static leg extension, it might work for one horse, but the next horse and rider combination goes like, this is stressful, I don't like it. And then we have to think. It's called creative limitation. Think inside the box, as they can find a creative way of helping the human to communicate the intention clearly to the horse without the stress. And so sometimes we do some pretty interesting things. To give you an example, one of my clients is very sensitive and she doesn't like tapping on the horses at all, putting physical pressure on them. And so to me, there's another interesting presupposition in NLP that says there's no such thing as an untrainable student, only an inflexible teacher. And so I had to remind myself of this because I half wanted to say to her, but this is how we train horses all the time. It's like you just tap them with a whip behind their knee and then they'll lift their leg and then we reward them for it. And she's like, nah, I don't really like this whole idea of tapping with the stick. And I said, okay, let's take the stick out of the equation, put it down. And we walked the horse to a bank, which was a little bit of a step up. And we literally let him just hold the halter and asked him to take a step forward and lifted his foot up, and we marked him for that and we rewarded. and then step back, and then step towards it, and he lifted his foot up. And so without actually tapping on the leg at all, he learned to lift the leg and do a static leg extension without touching the legs with a stick.
Oh, I just got full-on chills from that, Jenku. So you're absolutely beautifully creative with that. And being a flexible teacher is one of the most admirable things. So I'm just so excited to hear that. And now I'm like, what other possibilities are out there? That's fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think more often than not, it's the humans, most probably more so than the horses, that go, no, don't like this, don't like that. And that's what keeps me most in a place where I have to constantly find a solution. There's always a solution. It's never a thing where you get stuck. It's like sometimes you just have to think really hard and try, not be afraid to try different things. It's like, but in the end, it's like I think they all come around. It's like, the challenge is just not to get stuck and say, but this is the way we've been doing it since 1913.
That is so true. Oh my goodness. Well, along the same lines, the next question is, what is something a horse has taught you that has changed your perspective?
I'll tell you what, one of the most profound lessons that I've had, and it wasn't so nice, is like, because I was still very physical. In the late 90s, I was physically manipulating horses. It's what I knew at the time. I've done, let's call it my version of natural horsemanship. And this one horse was sent to me, he was rearing, and so he just kept on rearing. And so I actually got cross, and I whipped him. And a friend of mine, 4 years prior, that was in 1994, he said to me, if you lose your temper, it displays your lack of knowledge and understanding. And I was actually quite offended at the time when he told me that. And 4 years later, when I had this incident with the horse, they actually left the horse in the ring. I went back in the evening and I literally grabbed him around his neck and I just started crying. And I said to him, I didn't understand what Leon meant when he said that if you lose your temper, you lack knowledge and understanding. And I said, now I understand. I had to mature to this level. Even though I think the breaking point for me, the straw that broke the camel's back was that moment when it hit me like a brick, what he said, and me losing my temper. I'm going, this is not who I want to be. And so the horse's name was Willow. And Willow, eventually, when I broke my back a few months later, was the horse that I rode, because his back was very quiet. So I was able to sit on him, and he stopped rearing. And not because of physical force. What I realized is that he was herd bound, and every time we went to a gate, I would dismount, open and close the gate, and the rest of the group would carry on riding, because these were inexperienced people. I was working as a horse trail guide, and that's why I started rearing. So all I had to do is ask the group, just wait for me, I'm going to get back on, and then we all walked together, and he stopped. So when I took the trigger for his anxiety away, he stopped rearing completely. So much so that I trusted him that I could ride him. I didn't know that I had broken my back, but I was very sore. And so I trusted him enough to sit on him, knowing that he would not rear with me. So yeah, Willow really, I think that for me was the epiphany bridge, when I went from being very physical, where it was all brawn and no brains, and I switched. To me, that was the pivotal moment when I actually went all soft. After that, I started clicker training. But up to that point, it was, like I say, all brawn and no brain. And then after that, it became all brain and no brawn.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's a beautiful shift.
Yeah, no, I'm very grateful to Willow, hey?
And I'm sure he's grateful that you figured out how to make that shift too.
Thank you. You're very kind.
You're welcome. So let's get into some of the intuition questions.
Yes, I've been looking forward. It's really interesting that you're going that way. I'm like, okay. This is exciting.
I love it. So Jenku, how has your intuition helped you when interacting with horses or clients?
something that has happened to me since I started clicker training, and it was fascinating because I didn't initially recognize it. I used to get cross often until I broke my back, and then I had to, out of necessity, be very, very quiet. And what was interesting about positive reinforcement is I've learned two things from clicker training: was to focus on what the horse is trying to do right. So that's really important. And then to mark the desired responses. So it shifts your focus from what the horse is actually doing wrong 80% of the time. Let's say if it's a multiple choice question, there's 5 answers to have multiple choice to keep the math simple. 4 out of 5 is incorrect answers or undesired responses. And we're using pressure as feedback to let them know, no. This is not what I want. And then 1 out of 5 is a correct answer or desired response. And then we mark that. And so it was fascinating to I thought that I had good timing as a natural horseman, but when I started clicker training, I realized to focus on what is the horse trying, recognizing the smallest try. If you use a different tool, you get a very different, your eyes develop a different focus. And so over time, I realized that I wasn't losing my temper anymore. And that was just because I have shifted my focus. And then interesting thing with regards to clients is like I still remember it quite vividly. One of my clients, I had a lesson with her. We had very good rapport, was going really well. And suddenly she just burst out in tears as I got such a fright. And I didn't quite know. It's like I was very uncomfortable, didn't know what to do. It's like, because it's not as if clients burst into tears for no reason. It's like, and I wasn't even shouting at her or anything. We were just having a nice conversation. And I recognized that she actually had depression. And I pointed it out. It's like, obviously we had deep rapport, so I was able to say to her, I was like, I know that this is a sensitive subject. It's like, and it's not something that people like to talk about. But have you been to the doctor and have you asked them about depression? As and then I also said to her, you have to appreciate that antidepressants, people have a negative connotation with it, like we spoke earlier on, in terms of psychological problems. And I said to her, all that actually happens in your body physically is that your body produces serotonin, it gets reabsorbed instead of being utilized. And so I said, all that the tablets actually do is it just helps with that process. Your body is already producing the serotonin. So the antidepressant is present in your body. It's like the pill is what helps your body to actually utilize it. And I think once I explained the science to her, then she was much more happy to go, oh yeah, no, in that case, I think I'll go to the doctor and ask him for antidepressant in inverted commas. It's like, because, it's such an interesting thing that people have such a negative connotation with these things. And then subsequently, I had 2 other clients where it was a similar situation, but because I had a positive experience the first time where the client was quite receptive, the second and the third one, I handled it very differently, and I think also for them it was such a nice thing to go, oh, it's normal, it's okay. It's like a lot of people have this and it can be fixed. That's the most beautiful thing about it. It's not even difficult to fix it.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. What I'd love to hear is, how do you receive your intuitive insights? Do you get them through thoughts? Do you get them through feelings? Do you get them through voices? Like, are there any specific moments where you're like, I think this is what my intuition wants to say?
For me, I would say it's my little voice. And when I was younger, it's like we learned to suppress it because we worry what other people are going to think and what they're going to say. It's like if you come with some weird idea, for instance, it's like one of my clients, her mare had a foal. The mare unfortunately died at birth, and so the foal had to be hand-reared. And I knew from experience that you can't just give them formulas. Like you have to water it down, and you have to put, for lack of a remembering, it's like I think you have to put calcium in the water. It's like with chalk, and then you have to let it stand, and then you take just the water. You don't take the chalk itself, and then you mix it 2/3 of chalk water with 1/3 of cow's milk, something like that. It's like, so it's a bit of a process to make the milk for a young foal. And she was just giving the horse formula, and I knew that the horse was going to grow too fast. But because she was so emotional and upset, I didn't want to upset her. But my little voice said, you need to tell her what to do. And 3 months later, unfortunately, because the horse developed really fast, the horse had to have graphite implants in the tendons because it got boxy feet. And I could kick myself because my little voice spoke, but I suppressed it. I go, no, now's not an appropriate time. You should rather just keep quiet. It's like, she's very upset and emotional. Don't say anything. And maybe if I actually just opened my mouth and said something. So now the way in which I handle it, I would say to my clients, my little voice speaks, and I apologize if it offends or upsets you. It's like, but I have to just tell you that this is what it says, and it might be for you, might not be for you, but I just need to tell you. It's like, and most people handle it, like, they take it very, very positively. It's like, and yeah, I think people most probably can appreciate the intention behind it. There's always a positive intention. It's like, so even though it might sometimes come out a little bit sideways, the positive intention is what it's really all about.
I'm really proud of you for being able to kind of reframe how to approach it, because that is so true. If you just say, hey, this is what I'm feeling, I don't mean to offend in any way, but I just need to get this out. And you never know how it's going to create those ripple effects. So I'm glad that you're able to make that shift too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's quite a learning curve, life it is. Yeah.
Yes, I always say life is one big experiment, you know?
Indeed. Indeed.
I'm just grateful we get to all play in it together.
Very much so.
So, Jenku, how has your intuition ever surprised you in life? And if it has, could you share a story?
I think it's like for me, it was, like I said, was my clients who have depression. It's like that's something that, because the little voice speaks, it's like, and you go, oh, like, this is not, it's not as if you can just talk to someone about depression. It's like, because it's something that people, for whatever reason, it's weird. It's like when we break a leg and you put a cast on, people go and they sign on your cast. It's like, and it's quite a thing. People make a thing of it. It's like, because you've broken your leg, and they celebrate it, and they celebrate when your cast comes off and your one leg is thinner than your other leg. And yet, it's like, when you think about psychological lesser injuries, it's the same thing. It's just because we can't see it. It's like, I think we tend to handle it, we're almost a bit weird about it. And so I would venture to say, it's like, for me, standing in my truth and saying, it's like, listen, this is what my little inner voice is saying, and I really just want to help. It's like, I don't mean any harm or don't mean to offend. And so with those people, I think that really stood out, and all three of them made the choice to actually go for treatment. And it was simple, and easy, and a week later they were already feeling better and more optimistic about life. And that in itself, I think, is such a nice positive feedback loop. So all three times it's worked really well for me. So far so good.
I love it. And ultimately it's up to the person, but if you have information that needs to come out, it's a beautiful thing to feel safe enough to stand in your truth. And I'm really glad that you're able to do that.
Thank you. You too. Hey? Yeah, it is such a thing to just develop the confidence. And I think initially it's small and slow incremental gains. Yeah? It's all about marginal gains, getting slowly more confident about sticking your neck out and know that it's not going to get chopped off.
Exactly. Yes, that's important.
Very much so.
So, Jenku, what lights you up and inspires you immensely in the horse world?
I think so. We went to a seminar in Chantier about 4 weeks ago, and it's really interesting to see that people are starting to think, they're starting to talk about the things, measuring the things that cannot be seen, or making the unseen seen. And so there's definitely a shift worldwide where people are starting to say, you know what, we need to think about this whole thing differently, because I think it was all about performance and output, and what we can get from the horses. But we now starting to think about, but what do I need to put in? It's one of my clients verbalized it really well. I asked her, what was the one thing she's learned, or what is the one thing that's really appealed to about my method? And she said, she was having fun. And she said, I'm having fun. And I would like to think that my horse is doing the same. And I think that's really what it's about, is that it's becoming a reciprocal relationship, rather than it being something that I'm the leader and you are the follower, and I need you to comply and don't backchat and don't ask questions. You just do as I say. I definitely think that in terms of global universal consciousness, something is shifting, and I'm excited about that.
I am as well. I got chills again.
Woo, yuppie.
That's how you know the truth is coming out. It's like my body's like a biofeedback for truth,
Oh, that's quite a nice way to think of it. Hey, biofeedback for truth. We like the truth. We are all truth seekers.
Absolutely. And it's really comes down to what our heart opens up to. I think that's the feeling, totally. And I am also very grateful that there are more people out there starting to look into, hey, what can I do to help my horse more, instead of what can the horse do for me? I mean, that's a huge shift. And I'm grateful that I've started on that journey, because I started out as a kid just, being told to tell the horse what to do. And that's the only way. And now I'm like, okay, how can I create a feeling of the horse inviting me into their space? And how can I invite them to dance? So it becomes a co-creation instead of, you must do this, right?
That's beautiful. Co-creation. That's a very nice way to think of it. Beautiful. Wow.
Thank you. So, Jenku, what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self for encouragement?
Always focus on the positive. Really, I think for me, like I explained earlier on, it was not intentional. I didn't mean to find it. It found me. But the fact that I because of the tool itself, the clicker training taught me to focus on what the horse is trying to do right, and to let them know you're doing well, have a reward. And so my focus shifted completely. And I must say, sometimes I find it really hard when I see people using negative feedback, because they're giving a lot more negative feedback than positive feedback. And I don't know if I would like to be in a class where the teacher is constantly telling me that whatever I'm doing is not good enough. It's such an interesting thing. That to me has been a really big life lesson. And I've always been an optimistic person, but you think that you're optimistic and that you're focused on all the things that are going right, until you really drill down to the smallest tries. Then you realize it's tiny little things that we do, where we give negative feedback, and it's unintentional. It's not as if a person is going, oh yeah, I want to break this person down, or no one in their right mind does that. But it's so interesting, the effect that it has on a person psychologically and physically and physiologically. It's those little bits of negative feedback. Big time. Focus on the positive.
I love it. That's perfect. Okay, so here's a fun one. Jenku, What does the phrase, "May the horse be with you always," mean to you?
So that in itself, I think, is like a life philosophy, because the way that I see life is through horses' eyes. It's because I've done this for 32 years, pretty much my entire life revolves around horses. It's I eat it, I sleep it, I drink it, I dream it. And so the just having them constantly around me is and like I say, it's such an interesting thing. The horse as a spirit guide, most probably, more than anything else. Just always is being omnipresent in everything that I do. So even if I'm not teaching, my mindset is very much that, where I focus on what is people doing right. And these lessons were learned from interacting with horses. It's like, so it's become a way of life. It's not, I don't just do it as a job. It's the way that I am. Like I said earlier on, it's like I used to lose my temper often. And when I started clicker training, stopped losing my temper. Didn't realize it initially. Took me about 6 months to a year before I started realizing, oh, wow, I haven't lost my temper. It's really interesting. And what has changed? Well, all I learned was to focus on what is the horse trying to do right and to reward them for those small tries. And I think that in itself flowed into every other aspect of my life. It's like, so even in the language that we use when we speak, if someone uses negative terminology, it's like I will often just correct them, not invasive, but just if they say, oh, I can't do it. No, you can't. And they go, no, I can't. Or we talk about the horses turn on the left lane is the easy side, but the right lane is the difficult side. And I go, no, the right lane is the easy side and the left lane is the easier side. So constantly reframing just language. It's like, whatever you say, it's like, just reframe that. It's like, there's a more positive statement. So, and that comes from the horses. It's like, so yeah, very much. The horses are with us always, in our dreams even.
Absolutely. It's so true. I love when they show up in our dreams. It's really fun.
Yeah, true, eh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially horses that have passed on that come to visit and we play. Oh, it's so much fun. Yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's special. Whoosh. That's deep.
So, Jenku, is there something else that you'd like to share that I haven't asked you?
No, it's like you know what? I really enjoyed the questions. And it's such an interesting direction that you're taking it in. And so I'm very grateful. It's like that you're asking about these things and that you're asking a diverse group of people these questions, because like it definitely opens up a whole different dialogue, and that I'm excited about, because it's all about consciousness, driving consciousness in a certain direction. So thank you. It's been really nice just to read through the questions and go, wow, you've come a long way since the last time we've spoken. So to me, that was very touching.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And I so appreciate all of your beautiful insights, and your energy is just phenomenal. And I'm always so grateful to share it with you.
No, you are very welcome, Isaac. You are an inspiration to me, Beth.
Oh, thank you. And you for me.
Oh, they are very kind. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well, I will close this out with, may the horse be with you always.
May the horse be with you always.